And talking matters infrastructure and the role women are playing in this sector. Joining us in studio right now is Makena Mwiti, Director for Logistics at Trademark East Africa. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Abby.
Well, of course, a lot of talk right now. We are going into the elections. The focus really infrastructure. And I wouldn't want to pass off without asking you this question really. Where are we as a country in terms of our infrastructure development, knowing very well that there's a big shortage in terms of infrastructure that has been set up already?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, thanks, Abby. So just like you mentioned, I work with Trademark East Africa, and Trademark East Africa is a multi-funded donor aid for trade agency that was created to support trade in East Africa.
Yeah.
So we work around three main objectives. The first one is increasing physical access to markets. This is where we do all our work on the work we're doing at the ports, the work we're doing at the roads, at the one-stop border posts. And the whole idea is to reduce the cost and time it takes for people to trade within the region. We're also working on enhancing the trade environment. And this is where we look at the non-tariff barriers, which also hinder that flawless trade across the region. And then under the improved business competitiveness, which is our third objective, we look at how to now build the small businesses that are working in that area. So we do a lot of work on logistics, on trade logistics. We look at the business enabling environment, and we also do work on export capability.
All right.
Yeah.
And just what's your assessment right now of, are we on the right track in terms of the infrastructure agenda?
I think we can't say we're on the right track, because what we try to do at Trademark, we try to make sure that whatever we do is inclusive and sustainable. And that's why we're looking at the women. We've recently released a study on women in the logistics sector to better to understand exactly what is it that hinders women as employees in the logistics sector, and also as traders, as SMEs working in that sector. So we did a study and using in partnership with the umbrella organization, FIAFA, to really try and identify what the challenges are. We come from a point where we want our solutions to be practical, and we want them to be demand-driven, as opposed to us coming with the solutions. So some of the challenges, just to give you an example, when it comes to women in logistics, the first one is discrimination. And you find this in whether you're looking at the pay gap. And the pay gap, we're talking about equal opportunities, equal pay for equal work.
Sure.
The women are often paid less than what men are paid for. The other issue is the metaphorical glass ceiling, you know, where you say women can only reach to a certain part, and then, you know, after that, it's not for them.
Yeah.
And then the other, when it comes to discrimination, is having a seat at the table. So most often, women are excluded from those discussions, whether you're looking at policy, whether you're looking at legislation. So they're not able to negotiate, and the barriers still...
Do you have the numbers, really, out of the report?
We have the numbers. We have the numbers. It's interesting, because when you look at the total turnover, for example, in the logistics industry in Kenya, it was $9.4 billion. When you look at the participation of women, in Kenya, it's about 20%, you know, women employed. Total employment, out of that, 20% are women. And this is a number that's reflected across East Africa, because across East Africa, we're looking at about 19.5%. So at Trademark, what we're really trying to do is push that percentage, you know, push that percentage. We can never be equal, so to speak, when it comes to men and women employment, but we want to increase those opportunities. Yeah. So we're doing a lot of work, for example, on building a work environment, you know, talking about guidelines and institutions that can be able to build a good working environment. We're talking about skills development for women. The other thing you know about the logistics sector is that not many people know what happens in the logistics sector, you know? So it's creating awareness, yeah? Using those opportunities for both men and women to apply, because most of the time the logistics sector has been seen as a very man-driven sector, male-dominated. Yeah. But we have a number of success stories. I'm sure you've heard of the first marine pilot in Mombasa, Captain Marimi, who's also breaking that glass ceiling and showing young women that there are opportunities when it comes to that.
Logistics.
In logistics, yeah. We have a project in Mombasa with Kenya Ports Authority where we also try and track the number of women in employment. Women crane drivers. You know, mostly when you think of a crane driver, it's a man driving the crane, but, you know, there are good examples of some women crane drivers, you know, or even operating some of the machine, which has been mainly done by men.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a time when I was in Mombasa, and we came with a truck all the way. We were heading to Kampala.
Right.
And the realities of the women in the logistics is quite staggering, because I didn't even see one woman along the entire value chain. So really, how much are you spending towards this, and what's the timelines for this project?
Yeah, so we as Trademark have made a commitment to increase the percentage of women participating and represented in the logistic by 25%. It doesn't look like a lot, but if we can push that needle up to 25%, then we can be able to address some of those concerns, yeah? So again, we're working with our partner organizations, and the way it has to be, and this is something that I've seen over the years when you're working on women projects, is that you have to kind of like complete the intervention, yeah? So if you're working on access to markets, for example, or logistics and creating jobs for women, then at the same time we need to do a lot on the regulatory aspect, yeah, and the legal aspect, working conditions. How safe is it for women to work in this sector? So that's the approach we've taken as Trademark, increasing it by 25% holistically, and then looking at all the different projects we have within East Africa.
All right. Finally, before I let you go, how do we fare Kenya and perhaps any of the countries that we can say these are classical example of they have had the women properly engaged in the logistics business, and what has been the impact really to the economy, to families, and the trading business at large?
So how have we fared as Kenya? I think as Kenya, compared to the rest of the East African countries, is probably well ahead. But we're also seeing some good results from Rwanda, who are very gender focused in what they do. But I think I'll just take you back to that whole thing of increasing women's participation. Whether you're looking at it in terms of employment or small and medium businesses, we have research that shows us if women do well, the families do well. So you have that whole developmental impact.
So there's a trickle down.
There's a trickle down, exactly. And then it also helps us achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, which is our priority at the end of the day.
All right.
So you find that we have some good results to share. I just also want to mention one of our, we've got a whole communication aspect around our projects. And the communications team actually won an award, All Africa Award, in terms of how they've been showcasing the results when it comes to trade and other logistic measures.
All right.
So I'd say we've done quite a bit, but we still have a long way to go.
All right.
And this is where the partnerships I was talking about come in very handy.
All right. Wishing you all the best, and let's see how that goes, especially now that there's a lot of input in terms of the girl child going to school, and of course getting to do these hard courses that people do say all around. Many thanks, Makena.
Thank you, Abby.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Well.